issues. Let's get Matt on here. We do this once a month. Is off to a great start. And Matt Nelson's going to be on here any second. Accepted that request. There he is. Matt.
Hey, how you doing, Ollie?
How are you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good.
All right. Well, thanks. You're like a pro now, man. You just hop right on. It's super smooth.
I'm getting there.
All right. So you guys, like I was saying, this is Graders Corner on Elite Comics 11. Matt Nelson, this is the president, primary grader of CGC. Generous with his time, giving you guys access. Once a month we do this. This current episode was, delayed a little bit, but we get together once a month, and Matt's here. I mean, if you want to talk about grading, is there anyone better to have? So we're really thankful for the access. Matt and CGC, thanks for doing this. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Matt. You're going to do most of the talking, but I just want to let people know, as I said a few times now, I look at the post and I try to give priority to the people that let us know the issues they wanted to discuss ahead of time. So people are a lot better about that this time. And if I put a green check mark, the plan is for me to bring that up to Matt, and then you'll hear what he has to say. And I'll just say beyond that I try to focus on issues and questions that can help a lot of people, not just a specific issue with a specific set of facts and stuff. So just trying to be helpful to the broader group. All right, Matt, before we get started, actually, I like to plug your book because you don't really plug it, so I'll plug it. So this is the official CGC guide to grading comics, you guys. Matt wrote this book. It is excellent. All right, lots of pictures, lots of helpful information. If you guys want to, study up on your own grading skills, a lot of comic book history in here too. Matt, where can they get it?
On the CGC website, there's a link to our Shopify, and so you can order it there. We still have some signed copies left that are hardcover, and then of course the regular hardcover and the soft cover. So those three are still available. We're selling out. I mean, we still got some left, but it's getting lower. So at some point later on, probably this year, we'll be working on an updated version, just some slight revisions, but mostly it's going to be about the same thing. So nothing earth-shattering second time around. So yeah, if you guys want to pick that up now, go for it.
I think Matt was saying, you guys, if you got one already, you should buy a second copy. Keep it in a 10.0 because it might become more collectible soon. Okay. Yeah. All right, Matt, anything you want to talk about before we hop in? I think one issue that we kind of discussed is, I don't know if you want to, there were some pricing changes recently. You want to say anything about that? You want to give an overview of any changes?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so a couple of, obviously the price changes, price increase, which was, fairly slight. I mean, I think it was $1 for modern, $2 for economy, $5 for standard. Then we merged the express and walkthrough tiers and renamed everything. So modern's still modern. Economy is now vintage. Standard is high value, and then the combined express walkthrough tiers are unlimited high value. And then we also did a few other changes, like we removed the pre-screen minimum. So now you can pre-screen one book if you want to on your invoice, which is great. Because, for those that are looking for that cutoff grade, that's very valuable. So I highly recommend using that service if you're looking for a specific grade or higher on a book. And then also we rolled CCS into CGC. So now it's just CGC pressing.
Oh, okay.
So it makes it a little bit easier. Yeah, it makes it easier for people to choose that whenever they're doing their online form. They can just choose pressing for any book they want to do.
All right.
So, yeah.
We've talked about CCS a few times already, and excellent service for restoration, removal, pressing, cleaning, and it's kind of a one-stop shop because you can get that service done and then it could go immediately for grading afterwards, right, Matt?
Right. Yeah. Pressing's the main thing, but obviously we get a good number of removals through. Typically people either they've got a purple label already that they want to try and get the restoration removed, or maybe they suspect there's restoration already on their book that's raw, and they just want to double check before it goes to grading. That way, if there is restoration, we can catch it and see if it's removable or not at that stage. And the screening options for a number of other things. I mean, obviously, people looking for upgrades, or just checking if they're, if they need pressing prior to grading. Obviously, crossovers is another one that people usually send through screening. And then we also do the conservation restoration. We still do that as well. And so conservation, of course, has really taken off over the years. So that's a very popular one. So yeah, pretty much all services, one-stop shop for any enhancement or checks that need to be done on a book prior to grading.
Okay, awesome. So let's get the community's voice heard. Let me start on this list, and we will take, if there's time left over at the end, we will take audience questions, but I want to give priority to people that let us know on the post what they wanted to talk about. So first things first, CGC planning to do any on-site grading at any conventions this year, or are you guys doing that?
Unfortunately, we're not. Yeah, we're going to be setting up at shows, but we decided to put a hold on on-site grading. I think the last time we did that was the year prior to COVID. And so, yeah, we've just decided to go and keep the team here. It's a lot of stress getting the team out for that. Obviously, it moves resources away from normal everyday processing of submissions here. So I know some people really like that service, but the good thing is that we're caught up on all tiers right now. So, if you send it in for pressing and grading, it's not going to take that long anyway. So that's still available here, obviously, but we'll be setting up at shows throughout the year, taking regular submissions.
I mean, I've been stressed out just thinking about it myself on your behalf, like all those people giving you these all kinds of things while you're at this convention, and you got to keep them safe and keep them, as you move things back and forth. That's yeah, I could see how you want to be on your home turf.
Yeah, we did. We actually, years ago, we were doing pressing and grading on site. I don't know if you remember that. When I think before I joined CGC, there was this growing desire to have on-site pressing. And so we did that a couple of times prior to me coming over to CGC in 2013. And then we continued to do it for a few years after that. And that was even more cumbersome than grading, because now you've got both companies there. You've got a lot more people. And of course, pressing is, that's tricky enough as it is here in the building. Moving all that equipment, all those people out to various cities and doing that was tricky. But it worked out fine. And then we scaled that back to just regular grading, which of course limits, the number of submissions. If somebody wants their book pressed first, they can only have it graded. So those limitations, obviously you don't have to worry about that with sending the books here directly to the office.
Kosta's asking a good follow-up, which is, are people still able to drop off books physically for grading at the conventions?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If we're set up there, we're taking submissions. So yeah, just come on by the booth. And the people there are great. They can answer all your questions and certainly take the books in for a submission. And yeah, that's definitely there. And I think we still have the on-site signings, or signings happening at the show. So there's facilitators at the show. Books can be cracked out there, and everything is arranged at the table to have those books signed while they're at the show. And of course, I think they have to be brought back to be graded, of course. Yeah. But we do have that going to the booth as well.
That's a nice service. Okay, so this next issue, it comes up. Questions about it come up. I just want to kind of set the record straight. How does it work? People are always asking, how come, on a 9.4, or 9.6, I don't get grader's notes? How do you determine, because some of them have grader notes, some don't, or at least it seems that way. What is the criteria for whether or not you get grader notes? And if there is discretion, anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, it's typically in the higher graded books that we sometimes don't list notes on, either because the defects are present through the holder, the obvious defects that people see. Obviously some people would like notes on all books. On the other hand, some people they actually feel the opposite, that too many notes on a high grade book can be detrimental to maybe its value or worth to somebody that's looking to buy it. So, but yeah, there's not really a criteria. It's just basically on a book by book case, but they do get kind of thin up in the higher grades. I know 9.8s, we typically don't list notes, or we rarely do, maybe on the more high value books. But that's something I'm working on now that I'd like to see come to fruition sometime here soon, where we're going to be able to provide notes, or we would provide notes on all books, at least up to some point. You don't want to have like 6 notes on a 9.6, make it look like it's way lower grade. So that's something that I know the community wants. So we're going to be working towards providing more notes for them in the future.
I didn't plan to say this, but while we're here, I'll just bring it up. And I'm not saying it's a good idea, but something I'm just thinking about. Have you ever considered maybe including or having access to, like, the book like raw before it's graded, like have that picture taken, and maybe there's some way to access it so people can see it when they look up the book, when they try to get the grader notes, they could basically click on a link, see the picture of the book raw before it was slabbed, kind of thing?
Yeah, well, I think as we speak, we're actually implementing images for books in holders after they're graded.
Okay.
So yeah, that's happening now. I think some of them are populating online. We're not doing it 100% just yet. That's coming very soon though. So we'll be, the image of the book and the holder will be there. So if you click on like a grader's notes, or you enter the serial number, you'll get the grader's notes. You'll get an image of the actual book. Now, as far as like the raw book goes, that's an idea that's been floated around. And so, yeah, ideally, we would like to take images of the books before they're graded, before they're pressed, after they're pressed, before they're graded, after they're graded, encapsulated, basically every step of the process. So, some transparency there. So that's an idea that we've been basically working on. All these things that we've been wanting to do now that we're caught up in 2023, we're able to kind of stretch out and start, dealing with tackling some things we wanted to in the past. So that's another idea that might be coming in the future.
Yeah, no, I mean, because in this seat, we always see, like, people want to see the grader notes on a 9.6 because obviously they want to know, does it have a shot at a 9.8 if they work on it and stuff. So if they had access to like the raw book, maybe they would feel better about seeing what's going on inside the slab. But especially if there were no notes. So
yeah, the notes are, they're helpful to a point. But I've found in the past with my own experiences that relying strictly on notes they don't really give you the whole picture, particularly with pressing or upgrades, because before CGC, when I was buying books, I'd look up notes or get notes, or look at images online, which is another one that's a little tough because there's just nothing beats holding a book in hand and being able to look at it under a light and tilting it under the light and being able to see what's there. So that's really the best way to do it. I mean, the notes, initially the notes, I think we've covered this before, but they were never really meant to be something made public, at least not in the beginning. They were meant to convey information among the graders internally. And so they were never released. And then there was more and more people wanted the notes. And so they began releasing them. I think it was 2011. And but a lot of the notes were hand typed, and so we had to go back and transcribe all those notes, which we got most of those in now. And so yeah, there's been more of a demand that's grown for that. So that's something we want to give people. But I would stress that it's something, if you're looking for like a press candidate or something, oftentimes there might be bends that are not listed in the notes, or maybe they're not specific to where they are in the book, because oftentimes a book can have a lot of different things going on with it. Even an 8.0 can have 5 or 6 or 7 different areas. So the best thing to do is just try to train yourself on our grading standards, and then use that whenever you're looking at each book on a case-by-case basis to see if it has any upgrade potential.
Okay, next question or issue. So we had discussed, and I don't know if there's anything new to say about it, but we discussed that there were some known kind of fake slabs or counterfeit slabs floating around, specifically Pacific Northwest. Any news on that? Anything new to share about that, or are you guys still working on that?
Yeah, no, nothing new to share. I mean, we provided all the information. The authorities were contacted. Our lawyers got involved. The evidence that we had was given to them. So not sure where they're at with that now, but yeah, they're on it. So it's definitely something that's very concerning, because anytime that we see something pop up like that where there's a fake holder, it's we jump into action with that. So luckily we don't see it often, but this one was pretty high profile, so a lot of eyes on it. But hopefully that person will be held responsible for doing that, because yeah, that was a very unfortunate thing. So I mean, yeah, luckily we've, you know, it's I mean, unfortunately people can, you know, tamper with, they can do anything. We've got millions of books out there. I mean, they can mess with a holder and put it online, and a lot of times people just can't tell based on a picture, you know, until they actually get the book in hand. So it's one of those unfortunate things. But you know, there were some telltale signs. I think I remember with the images, that person had made like a fake label, and some people noticed some, you know, some things were off, like the font was off, the positioning of things, you know, it just didn't look like, you know, if you've seen enough labels, you know, you see it and you're like, oh yeah, that's something looks off there. But there's also a lot of people that are not that familiar with that. So, you know, it's just something to be very cautious about. Obviously buying from someone that you trust, or through something that has recourse like eBay, or a dealer, is, you know, is the best course of action. But yeah, but you know, hopefully, like I said, we don't see it very often. But yeah, hopefully this one will resolve itself, you know, for everybody's sake.
Okay. Well, for purposes of this show, I think people just are really after, if you do find any more details about what to look for to kind of prevent that same thing from happening again. I mean, you discussed that there were discrepancies with the label, and maybe people could pick up on that. But if there's anything else, I'll just leave it to you to update us. If there's something else, they just want to know what to look out for, basically.
Yeah, yeah. There's, I mean, when you have, let me think. So when you got the image online or the book in hand, two different things. So image online, obviously the label itself, anything that looks off, and also just the grade of the book. It's hard to ascertain that through an image sometimes, but oftentimes these books will be way off in grade. You know, they've got like an 8.0 label and the book looks like a 5.0. Sometimes it's hard to detect because maybe there's restoration that's not, you know, visible to the eye. And then also maybe checking the serial number, checking the notes, see if the notes match the defects, or possibly if there's a record of the book somewhere, like a heritage auction archive, checking, you know, if you happen to find a scan there, comparing the scans and notice, you know, see if it's the same book. And then when you have the book in hand, telltale signs are usually like the holder itself, the corners, particularly where they're sealed shut, sonically sealed. You know, you can see like, you know, either the holder's loose or it's partially open, or there's cracks, or maybe there's evidence of glue in the corners where they've opened it and tried to seal it back shut, or the inner well looks like it's cut or monkeyed with. You know, obviously the label in hand looks even more obvious if it's fake. And of course, in hand, does the book match the grade? And if you're able to tell, you know, looking at if there's any restoration or anything going on. So sometimes a little tougher, but often, usually when we see these fake books, like I said, it's pretty obvious that the book doesn't match the label or the grade. You know, I think this one actually, there was Xeroxed covers on the books, which is again, to the trained eye, you look at it in 2 seconds, you're like, oh, that's Xerox. But a lot of people don't know that. So yeah, if you're new to it, it's definitely more challenging. But those are some things to look out for.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks for that. And okay, I see lean on nickel and dime. I see your comments. I'll just, you know, let me summarize this. These are his words, not mine. He wants to know if CGC will give him a discount because he has chosen to live in New Mexico. No, Lino, no. Okay, that was your choice.
What's it about New Mexico that you know, for a discount? I don't.
Yeah, no, it's just because he has to eat a lot of green chili. He says. Okay, moving on. All right, Lino. And no, they're not hiring. Okay, let's see. All right. People were talking about that. You know, I guess there's like these questions about. People are worried about the shaking of slabs, like in shipping and stuff, and like, you know, how that can, you know, at least with the prior, some of the prior slabs, we've seen some damage from that. You want to, I think one way to get at what the questions were about is, can you tell us about the current slab? Like, what features does it have for the inner well, and how is it designed to like prevent damage from like shaking and shipping and such?
Yeah. So the holder is obviously, you know, in hand, it's sturdy. You know, the case is very hard. The inner well is designed to fit the book snug, but not too snug. We allow a little bit of room in there in the book Sometimes you'll notice there's a wedge in there that we use to close up a little bit of space if the wedge is, or if the well is a little bit bigger than the book. But there's tolerance in there, so we don't want it to be too tight because it'll buckle. But we also don't want it to be too loose because we want the book to jiggle around. So there's a very small tolerance that we allow for books. So sometimes people will notice that the book moves slightly, or even that the inner well moves slightly inside the holder. So again, that's all designed on purpose to where there's like a little give for the book inside the holder. But I mean, ultimately, we're dealing with very fragile paper. And there's really no way to truly secure a comic book without it getting damaged if it's dropped or something, takes a hard impact. Typically that happens when people, drop a box or drop a book, or shipping. Shipping is a big one. And so, unfortunately, we have no control over how these boxes are handled once they leave our premises. So, we do everything we can to make sure that they're packed securely in the boxes. There's, bubble wrap and cardboard dividers in the bags and all that. And then double box sometimes. But, ultimately we'll notice every once in a while someone gets, their order in, and, some of the slabs are cracked, and that's just simply, one of those things where, the carrier is just mishandling the box, as careful as we'd like them to be. So, now luckily, much of the time a cracked holder doesn't result in a book being damaged, but every once in a while, yeah, if the book, if it's hit hard enough, the book can actually hit the corner of the holder and cause like a bend or something. And oftentimes those can be fixed, and sometimes they can't. But, unfortunately, it's just one of those things where, the book just has to be, traveling from our facility to the customer. That's the most dangerous point. And then, but once it's with the customer, then it's really just up to them to make sure they take care of that book and hold it. So, we had that idea a few years ago about trying to design the holder to pinch the book or squeeze it to hold it in place. So, yeah, that idea didn't really work out, but it was, the thought process there was to protect the book, to keep it from moving. So, unfortunately, this is, given the fragile nature of comic books and the edges being very fragile, you really can't squish it in place. And there's, it's the best we can do is just to make sure it's sitting, in that inner well that's just about, fit with a little bit of movement in there. But best thing to do is just take care of it like you would if it was a raw book in a bag and a board.
Image Comics, really good point right there. Yes, and I agree. I want to give you kudos, CGC, for the upgraded bags that the slabs come in now. Really nice.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's something you can keep up. But yeah, the improvement there was noticed. Image is saying thank you for that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, you're welcome.
Also,
yeah,
another compliment, and yes, we've talked about this a few times, but they're out now. The new magazine slabs, the feedback has been really positive on the new magazine slabs. So Wade's mentioning that there.
Yeah,
so
great. Yeah, they look beautiful. Yeah, I'm really happy with them. So we finished grading all the magazines now. We're caught up on that tier. I believe there's a good number of them that are waiting to be slabbed. So we're getting those out the door now. So very soon we should have everything out the door. And magazine tier will be back on track, completely caught up, like the comics, and rocking and rolling with that new holder. So yeah, that's great. I'm glad people like it.
Okay, here's something that I'll just ask. Somebody mentioned this. Has CGC considered signature verification? So you have the witness signatures. Obviously, that's become quite the thing in the industry. Yellow labels. What about any consideration to just verifying signatures that weren't witnessed?
Yeah, we've gone back and forth on this for years. I know there's certainly a demand for it. There's a lot of great signatures out there that existed prior to the Signature Series program. I mean, obviously you've got like Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby, a whole bunch of people that unfortunately didn't make it, or in Jack's case, he passed away in the 90s. So the biggest sticking point for us is the accuracy of the authentication. So, we've seen with other companies, even other collectible areas, like cards, where signature authentication has kind of fallen short in some cases, where people have gotten forged signatures through, or even the flip, that they've deemed a signature to not be authentic, and it is. So it's a slippery slope. Our main concern is preserving our reputation and our brand. And so that's one of those areas that it's real precarious. We want to move forward with it because of the demand and all the cool signatures that are out there. But You know, it's just something that we keep revisiting each year, and you know, we may eventually do it. We just need to make sure that we partner with somebody that we truly trust to authenticate those signatures, because it's such a signature authentication. Any field is very, very difficult. So, but technology is improving. So, you know, maybe there come a point, maybe through AI or something, that we can, you know, streamline that process and actually get the error rate down to almost zero, to where make it viable without threatening our brand. So, you know, something that we're still going to keep our eye on going forward. You know, one of the things is, you know, I always think of, like, you know, Steve Ditko or Jack Kirby, you know, two of the pillars in our, you know, in comic books, and Steve Ditko in particular. You know, if we did do this program, I can almost guarantee that a signature like Steve's would skyrocket in value. You know, it would be thousands of dollars probably for his signature. And so then what happens is now you have the impetus to forge them because of the money that's at stake. So it's like, by authenticating these signatures, you're opening the door to even more forgeries. So that's another slippery slope in there as well. So, but yeah, I always think about that. On the flip side, it'd be really cool to verify that and to have that out there in the market. You know, actual verified Steve Ditko signatures, and of course all the other great ones that came along with it. So something we'll keep you know, considering that in the future. So maybe one day we'll pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, I'll say, I don't know. Actually, this is an issue that came up, but I don't know. You know, I don't know how familiar you are with the card side of things. We did see recently on a live sale, I think just kind of on a test run, maybe somebody had a CGC graded card that actually was given a yellow label signed by Todd McFarlane. It was one of those Marvel cards. Is that something that's going to continue to be available, or was that just a small window to do that? Or
yeah, that was the beginning. Yeah, the plan is eventually we're going to open 6 series for all cards. The reason that we did Todd's, and I think we did some for Rob Liefeld as well, was because they were there with us. We did they were doing a large number of cards, and so, you know, we're not set up for that in our system yet, so it has to be done manually. So it made sense in that instance, or those two instances, to manually deal with the cards, because they were all in one place and they were all by one artist happening at once. You know, obviously when we launch this service, they're going to have obviously many different cards coming in from many different places, signed by many different people. And so at that point, we've got to be, you know, the system has got to be automated to where we can take that in and efficiently process it. So it was kind of like you know, it's a teaser, you know, something we're definitely going to be doing soon. But that's how those got out. Yeah. So it happened to work out for those two guys.
It was neat. Yeah. Somebody that works with us, Bill, he, I guess he read the fine print and figured out that was even available and got one. And a lot of people had never seen it. So the response was really good. People thought that was a really cool concept. So
yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So one issue came up where people are, you know, there's the CGC census that tracks, you know, based on serial number, how many examples of each grade for a given book exist or are known to exist in this registry. So some people take those books that have already been graded, they crack and press them, resubmit, and you know, it's human nature. They don't want Matt to know what it used to be because they want to get, like, they don't want him to be biased. So they don't actually include the label when they submit it to you for regrading. You know, you've talked about encouraging people to do that because, you know, that way the old entry will be removed. But suppose they don't do that when they send the book in. I want to confirm, can they send in the label afterwards? Like after they already got their new grade, can they send in the old label to get it off the registry?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we encourage that. You know, I know inevitably there's people out there with labels, and some of them have a lot of labels. And yeah, we absolutely want those labels back because we, you know, obviously want to keep the census as accurate as possible. So yeah, I encourage people, if they have labels laying around, certainly if it's bigger books or higher dollar books or rare books where the census has a real impact, even if it's just 1 or 2 labels that have not been taken off the census, then I highly recommend sending those back in, or urge people to do that. So the best thing to do is basically just, you know, I wish I had a point person to say to send them to, but I would just say to have them reach out to customer service and ask them, you know, who should they send, whose attention should they put, you know, to put the labels to. I mean, honestly, at this juncture, if somebody out there's got a bunch of labels and want to send them in, just send them to my attention.
Okay.
Drop them in the mail at CGC, say attention Matt Nelson. I'll take them because we have a, you know, a place where we put them, and then we have somebody that comes in every few days and takes them off. So it doesn't matter if the label doesn't have to be with the book. It doesn't have to be in the holder. You know, as long as we have the actual physical label with us, you know, and obviously it's a real label, not a picture, then we'll go ahead and take it off the census to keep it accurate. So that's, you know, one thing that, you know, I mean, we've done over the years. I have to say, unlike a lot of other, you know, collectibles, we've been lucky that CGC census is by and large mostly accurate, because, you know, we don't have, you know, competition where, like in coins or cards, where you've got, you know, two companies that are grading, you know, say it's 50-50 or 60-40 or whatever. So you have a lot of crossover going, a lot. And so a lot of cards are being, or coins are being cracked out and crossed, and all these labels are, you know, so you got two censuses, two sensi or census going, and they, you know, and who, you know, who's to say you got to add them together and you got to subtract a certain percentage because some of the labels didn't come back in. So we're lucky we haven't had to deal with that issue as much because we've had such a huge market share for so long. And I think also, you know, the people have been pretty diligent about wanting to keep it accurate for themselves. And so they've been good about getting the labels back to us, even if it's after the fact. So certainly it's something I want to keep going in the future. So yeah, if you got any old labels up there, please send them in.
And somebody was asking, just a clarification, if they want to send you the old label to get it off the census, do they physically have to send in the label, or can they email an image? I would think physically, right? They got to
physically, yeah. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, even if it's one label, I mean, you know, I don't want to ever discourage anybody sending a label in, you know, but if it's like a big book, like, you know, an AF-15 or, you know, some really high grade copy or some rare golden age book or something, yeah, it's definitely best to just, if it's one, just drop it in the mail and with a little note saying take it off the census. You know, we'll definitely do that.
Yeah, Excelsior, I'm sure. Yeah, they're asking, can they drop off labels at a show?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they, you know, again, they, just as long as they let the person know this is, I'm turning this in and get it off the census, you know. So
everybody send in or drop off your labels, and like you said, put it, attention Matt Nelson. You're gonna have like thousands of labels coming your way. Maybe
we're gonna do an on-site label removal service. We're gonna set up at shows.
All right. Here's another one. Pre-screening books. So people use the pre-screening service, you know, I don't know, screen for 9.6 or 9.8 or what. I think it for sure there's a 9. Well, what is the criteria? What's available for pre-screening in terms of grading?
Up to 9.8. Yeah, we don't do 9.9 or 10. One day maybe. This is again in the bucket list, you know, along with everything else we talk about, treasury editions and, you know, all that stuff. It's something that we I could see us doing at some point in the future, opening a 9.9 pre-screen, because there's a lot of demand for that, or increasing demand, I should say. But yeah, you can go up to 9.8. You can go down to 0.5, although that doesn't really make much sense. But you know, usually people want like 9.8, 9.6, 9.4. It's mostly a modern thing, mostly a high grade thing. You know, but people send in vintage books too, and they want particular grades. So, and this is also only for economy and modern, or I should say vintage and modern tiers, the two regular tiers. So I don't think we offer pre-screen service on the high value tiers. So just those bottom two.
So how does this work? So I guess the disappointment, I guess, was people send in books for pre-screening, say 9.6 or 9.8, and then it just fails the pre-screening, and then they just get the book back. Like, if they don't want the book to just come back, what are they just not picking the right, you know, the right category of pre-screening? Because they basically are like, okay, it wasn't a 9.8, but why don't you just grade it anyway? Like, if it failed, instead of send it back, like, what do they need to do if they want it to be graded if it fails?
Yeah, that's a tough one. We're not set up for that, because we just follow the rules, the way the paper works, or the way what's chosen in the submission form. So if they choose 9.8 and it fails, then it's going back raw.
Gotcha.
And so yeah, there's not you know, there's not really, I mean, it's just not viable to say, oh wait, hold on, lower to 9.6. I mean, we had that a number of years ago. We had a couple of vintage collectors, high-end vintage collectors who were trying to push the envelope, and maybe they were looking for a double bump. They had like a 9.0 that they thought would get a 9.4 maybe, but 9.2 obviously would still be acceptable, so they do 9.4 pre-screen, and then it would fail, and they'd call it real fast and say, oh wait, I'll take the 9.2, then and so that's just years ago it was a headache. Now it's like impossible just because of all the stuff that's coming through here. So everybody that's trained on to follow protocol. So that's something like that is basically just not possible. But that being said, I would just be very careful about you don't want a lot of rejects because there's a $8 or now it's a $9 reject fee on the pre-screens. So the ones that want a pre-screen, particularly ones that are sending in maybe like a large order of moderns, and they want all 9.8s. It really comes down to just being able to accurately pick the books and know that they have a shot at 9.8. And a lot of people do that. They've been using us long enough now where they know where that line is, and their pass rate's very high. It's 100%, 90%, up in there. They get one here and one there that maybe something's missed. And then of course we get somewhere it's a complete failure. They like everything fails. One book goes through, and that just really comes down to the candidates that they pick. So that's a big part of the utilizing the pre-screen effectively is doing your part to make sure that the books are actually going to, possibly land in that grade, most of them, or at least a high percentage of them. So that's the part of the submitter that they have to be responsible for that, because otherwise they go back raw.
All right. Yeah. Somebody was asking then why do pre-screen? Because there's people out there that decide they only want to slab the book if it's a 9.8, for example, or some other grade, and it's much cheaper to pay the failure fee than get a book graded that you don't want graded if it's not going to be the grade you're looking for.
Yeah, and that's particularly true for the economy or the vintage, which is a higher fee than the modern. So, vintage typically, like I said, there's not as much of a grade concern like there is in modern on vintage. The people, especially like if it's old, an old, like a golden age or something that's more scarce, then the value's there, and they just want to grade it no matter what. So yeah, mostly a modern. But yeah, to your point though, it's the $9 fee is definitely preferable for a reject rather than getting back, a book that you have to pay, whatever it is, the vintage price for.
Awesome. Okay. So I don't know if this is true, Matt, but somebody was saying the CGC Signature Series facilitator list on the CGC website, they were saying that it hasn't been updated in a while. If that's true, do you have plans to update it to bring it up to date?
Yeah, I shot an email out to Brittany about that, because I noticed, I haven't seen the facilitator list in a while. There was an announcement made back in 2020 with a list, and I believe the dealers may have access to a list online through their portal, but I'm not sure if there's an actual page somewhere on the website that lists the facilitators. Is that true? Is there a page there on the website?
I think at least maybe on the older website there was like somewhere you could click for that list. The person that wrote this, I'm sure if they're here, maybe they can let us know, but it sounds like they're looking into that. Matt forwarded that issue, so that's awesome that you got that.
Yeah, we'll get that updated.
So, if it's not updated, it sounds like they're going to take a look and hopefully update that. Okay, I just have one more. We want to take audience questions at this point. Again, if I didn't get to you in chat yet, it's because we're giving priority to the people that actually put the questions on the post. That lets Matt know, kind of prepare better and know what we're going to talk about so he can give better answers. So that's important. So the last one I have, this is just a bizarre question. I don't know. Maybe it's simple. It probably is simple, but okay. Here's the set of facts. Kyle's Comics. Here, I'm going to ask it, Kyle. So, how they have the Marvel value stamps, and like those are notoriously missing, right? So, what if somebody has a Marvel value stamp book where the stamp's cut out, but they still have the stamp that was cut out? If they submit it, what happens? Like, if they submit the cutout Marvel value stamp with the book, the original matches, what happens?
Yeah. So you mean if it's like loose inside the book?
Or maybe they tape it back in.
Yeah. So if you got, yeah, there's two different scenarios there. So, and we've seen that we've seen taped in Marvel value stamps fairly often, here and there. So our rules are standards in terms of reattached pieces, and this goes not just for the Marvel value stamp, but a corner that's torn off and taped back on, up to a point, we will consider that piece missing when we grade it, because it's basically reattached with tape. And that piece, obviously tape is not considered an improvement. It can't improve the grade of a book because it's not restoration, it's actually a defect. So if the stamp is just completely detached but it's inside the book, we're still going to list it as missing, even though technically it's not missing, it's there, it's just kind of tucked in, because it's detached. It's not even part of the book anymore, it's attached. If it's reattached with tape, then obviously it'll say that, Marvel value stamp reattached with tape, page 10. But the grade is going to be the same, because again, we're going to treat that as a missing piece because it's detached. And so now the good thing is that we used to say incomplete on the label if it was missing, and it wouldn't say that if it was taped back in. Now it's regardless, because we took the term incomplete off the label, or actually have a grading altogether. So really the difference is that whether it says it's missing. Now still we'll say it's missing if it's tucked in there. So obviously taped in, not ideal, because it's not a good idea to put tape on your book. But if you use archival tape, that would be good. So I would recommend taping it, because then at least you're going to get that notation taken off the label, or it's not going to be on the label saying that it's missing. And it's just in the notes, it'll just say that it's been reattached with tape. So now just one point too, there comes a point where pieces that are reattached with tape are not considered missing. That would be like a back cover that's taped on, or an entire cover that's taped on. Obviously, we're not going to assume the back cover is missing. So, a piece that large, or that large portion of a book, then we just resort to the other defects. Like, for instance, the back cover's taped back on. It's split on the spine, or was split or torn off at some point and taped back on. And so, a spine split tops out at 1/8. If it's taped along the spine, tops out at a 1/5. So even though the cover is reattached with tape, it's still going to get a very low grade. So in those cases, we don't consider that to be missing, or graded if it's missing.
Let me ask you this. It kind of came up. I see it in chat. So instead of focusing on a specific book, you know how, first appearance debates are, a big part of, at least what we see, comic community talk. Does CGC ever reevaluate the first appearance designations on books based on maybe new information that comes out, or do you just kind of once you start labeling a book a certain way, is it always going to be labeled the same way?
Oh, no. Yeah, we'll revisit information. Yeah, absolutely. If something new comes to light, we'll change it. If new information becomes pertinent, we'll add it. Obviously, if there's any mistakes, we'll change that. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I know I'm trying to think of an example where...
Here's an example, Matt. Okay, I'm trying to keep you out of the specific example, but the Gambit situation. So you got X-Men 266, a Jim Lee cover with Gambit, and then there's also the other, what is it, X-Men, it doesn't have Gambit on the cover, but that book, there's been some momentum for that to be the actual first appearance of Gambit, because I guess it hit the newsstands first, even though it wasn't planned to be that way. That's a mess, potentially. There are others. Hulk 180, 181, there's some debate about that as well. So, yeah, I wanted to keep you out of that, because you're going to fire a lot of people up.
It's tough. Yeah, but the Hulk is oh God, that's ongoing forever. You got two camps there, and you got to basically, you got to pick a side. And I forget exactly what our terminology is on Hulk 181 now. I think it's the first full appearance of Wolverine, or Wolverine cameo in 180. I forgot how we have it phrased, but we try to phrase it to appeal to as many people as possible. But comic collectors love to debate this kind of stuff. I know, Venom, I think there's an issue where there's a hand pushing Spidey in the subway, and it's his hand, and it's where does that fall into things? And then you have what is it, the Foom issue, I think, that's blown up lately, that's got I think it's Giants, it's got the X-Men team in it. So it's there's, and I love how collectors are so, they like to dive into researching the stuff and debating it. I love that. And so, you know, it's something I always encourage. And yeah, if there's a groundswell in a certain direction, at some point, you know, we will consider changing it, you know, even something fundamental like a first appearance like that. So, you know, we're always looking to follow trends in the industry. And, you know, it's been 23 years and, you know, things have changed over those years, and I'm sure they'll continue to change. So, you know, another example is like the black and white scooter ad in Batman, I think was it 181, I think, you know, which, you know, we've had a couple of people ask about, you know, notating that on the label, you know, but then, you know, we're trying to gauge interest and there's just not a lot of movement on it yet. So, you know, prices start to spike. It's like newsstand editions, you know, those started to spike. We added that, you know, I mean, Superman 1, there's two versions of that. We don't break that out. You know, so there's definitely a lot of examples out there of, you know, things we could notate, but, you know, it just depends on, we're always gauging demand in the marketplace for that kind of stuff. You know, we just, you know, we don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole if it's not really something desired.
Speaking of rabbit holes, we'll stay out of the 180, 181 debate, but I'm specifically being asked to make him say X-Men Annual 14 is Gambit's first appearance. It's kind of an interesting story. You can fact check it, but I'm not saying I got this right, but it's come to our attention that supposedly there was like a Marvel shipping error. So like Annual 14 actually hit the newsstand first, but it wasn't supposed to be Gambit's first appearance.
If you have any, like, forward me, email me, like, whatever information you have, I'll take a look at it. I'll send it to the team, and we'll at least digest it so we know, you know, we see what's going on here. Where, you know, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. So basically, you're saying just because the book hit the newsstands accidentally earlier, even though the story was meant to be a second appearance.
My understanding is that's what happened with the Annual 14 versus X-Men 266, and that's kind of the argument. So have at it, guys. Send them an email.
Yeah, to his email.
No, and Claremont confirmed it was X-Men 266, so that's probably going to bear some weight.
From the horse's mouth. Yeah, we had you know, we recently did a piece on emblems. I don't know if you caught that. It was an individual, Matt Ruback, did a lot of research on the first emblem appearances on covers. And going back to the golden age, and even including Image and Valiant and all the Marvel books in the 60s and everything. So it was interesting because what he was using was Library of Congress dates. You know, the dates that the books were actually registered with the Library of Congress. So there were instances we were going book by book, and there were some emblems that, you know, it would appear on 3 covers from the same month. But then if you go into the Library of Congress dates, there were different dates. And so we actually were able to figure out, you know, that this particular issue, you know, that's how we identified which one was going to be the very first emblem, even though these 3 books all had the same cover date. So sometimes it was 5, you know, sometimes it was pretty straightforward. But yeah, it was interesting. So, you know, talking about the book hitting the newsstand, you can go back even a step further and find out when the thing was registered with the Library of Congress and use that as a starting point.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, so this keeps coming up every time we sit down, Matt. There's another big comic company that they want to see custom labels from, so that always comes up.
DC, yep. Well, they need to contact. They need to reach out. They need to, what's it called? Do a big push on DC to get them to.
There you go.
give us permission.
So send your email to Matt about the Gambit debate, and then after that, send your email to DC and tell them to contact CGC. Let's do these DC labels. There you go.
Yeah. We want so bad to do those DC labels. You know, the Marvel labels, they're doing great, and they're so cool, and it's like it makes perfect sense to do DC. Why not DC? You know, so they're, you know, I know whatever's going on over there, but the team, again, it's like these other things. You know, they're working on it. You know, so hopefully we'll break through with that at some point and get those labels out there.
All right, so we only like to keep you for an hour. We appreciate your time. We have about 9 minutes or so. So at this point, let's take some audience questions. If we didn't see the questions ahead of time, let's open it up for a few minutes to people in chat. Matt will take a look at these and see if he wants to address any of them in these last few minutes. There is one like with the, what is it, the Blue Lizard kind of manufacturing like error on like ASM1, I believe. There's no note for that, right? There's no notation for that kind of thing.
No. Yeah, that falls into the same category as the scooter ad we were just talking about, where, you know, there's a lot of books out there that have printing errors, where, you know, something's a different color on a page, or, you know, something on the cover even. And again, it's like one of those case by case basis things where we have to, you know, assess, what are we looking at with the error? How many errors are there out in the market? What is the demand for this? You know, what is the market for these books? Does the market break them out? And so, you know, it's certainly, again, something we'll always consider. You know, people are more than welcome to email us and say, what about this? What about that? But that's basically the criteria that we use to determine if we're going to break it out or not. Because, I mean, it's another rabbit hole where there's just so many printing errors. I mean, people, you know, you can go through pages of books and find all kind of stuff over the decades. So, you know, but yeah, we'll, you know, if the market calls for it, we'll break it out.
All right, something that was brought up, you know, just something to consider. Somebody was like, hey, it'd be nice if CGC gave like a military discount or something. Somebody mentioned that. Something to think about there.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you want to look through these, and Matt, and let me know. There's a lot of different kind of issues being raised. I don't know if there's any that stand out to you. Why don't you go ahead and address them?
Yeah, let's see. Steps been taken to ensure the safety of our books. So yeah, safety. I guess I'll talk about somebody was concerned about the safety of their books. So, you know, the books are not. They're not taken out of their bags until they hit the grading room. So the first graders want to take it out of the bag. So, you know, prior to that, basically, you know, like we were talking about the shipping of the books leaving our facility. Well, there's also that same danger with the books coming in our facility. Even more danger because they're not encapsulated when they get to us most of the time. So, you know, obviously, I implore people to take as much care packing their books. You know, they don't have to. I mean, sometimes you get these boxes where they're like taped and it takes 20 minutes to open it. You know, something just, you know, cardboard, bubble wrap, just, you know, just making sure that, you know, double boxed or something. That really helps a lot. When the team gets boxes that are damaged, we do our best to try and assess to see if there was damage to the books. If there was, we'll contact the customer to let them know that we see them like that and try and, you know, figure that out. You know, and the team is trained through all steps to let their manager know if something happens to a book while it's being handled, whether it's in receiving, obviously grading, but even past this point in slab, you know, QC, shipping, anything like that. So it's something that we're very, very, you know, well aware of. I know occasionally it's inevitable that, you know, a book does get damaged at some step or in the mail here and there. So, you know, we do our best to obviously make sure that it doesn't happen, but if it does, to, you know, I assess that with the or you know, talk to the person where it happened, figure out, you know, how it happened, address that with them, reach out to the customer, and you know, just try and work it out with them, try and make sure, see if the book can be fixed. If it can, obviously we, you know, work something out with the customer to make them happy on that. You know, but yeah, we're definitely, you know, now that we're caught up on turn times, this is one of those things that we're really starting to buckle down on, are all these little things that we feel like we can improve on. So, and that goes across the board for everything. So, I mean, generally speaking, in my experience, you know, the thousands and thousands of books that go through here, it's actually kind of a small miracle there's not more damaged stuff. You know, I mean, it's, you know, from the person's perspective, it's hard to see that. They don't see that at all. They just see, they send their book into us, it gets damaged. And, you know, so of course it's easy to say, you know, to just assume that we're mishandling books over here. So I want to make sure that's definitely not the case, that, you know, it does happen rarely. And it is unfortunate when it happens to anybody, particularly if it's a book that they treasure or value. You know, but it's something that, you know, we definitely take a lot of care with. And I do have to say that it rarely happens, but, you know, if it does, we'll certainly catch it and try to make it right with the customer.
Yeah, no, you guys got the